The Alberta Pension Plan report is released. Finance Minister Nate Horner will join us to talk more about what this could mean for you and your retirement. We'll chat with Minister Brian Jean on the World Petroleum Congress held here in Alberta, and Environment Minister Rebecca Schulz will join us to talk about some major changes on emissions rules happening around the world and how that could impact us here at home. Hi there, and welcome to the Alberta Update, and thank you for joining us. I am your host, Bruce McAllister. The Alberta government released a report looking into the potential creation of an Alberta pension plan. Of course, that is big news this week. The report suggesting there could be major benefits to Albertans, which could include lower premiums or larger monthly benefits for retirees. Here's a quick synopsis now of what these potential changes could mean for you.
Alberta's government is exploring a new possibility, an Alberta Pension Plan, or APP for short. You might be wondering, what's in it for you? You see, in 2020, Alberta's government commissioned LifeWorks, an independent third-party consultant, to review the potential for an Alberta pension plan. Their analysis found many benefits for Albertans. That's because Alberta's young working population and more jobs with higher wages has resulted in Albertans over-contributing tens of billions into the CPP compared to the benefits we've received. This means that Albertans could save over $5 billion in just the first year if we moved from the CPP to an Alberta pension plan. These savings could increase each senior's monthly pension payment, or even provide a large bonus payment for seniors at retirement. Or these savings could be used to save Alberta workers up to $1,425 in payroll deductions every year. And if you're a business owner, small, medium, or large, an APP could reduce the premiums you pay each year by up to $1,425 per employee. Along with more money in your pocket, an APP would be more stable than the current CPP. An asset transfer of over $300 billion from the CPP to an APP would mean a more secure pension for Albertans. And agreements would be developed to allow Albertans to move throughout Canada without impacting their pension benefits. To be clear, there will be no move to an Alberta pension plan unless Albertans approve it in a referendum. It's your pension, your choice. So learn more and have your say at albertapensionplan.ca.
Joining us now to chat more about this is Minister of Finance and Treasury Board, Nate Horner. Minister Horner, listen, thanks for taking some time to talk to us today. Just looking at the numbers here, there is a potentially very large benefit for Albertans.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for the opportunity. The report shows that there's great potential in this idea, and shows great promise for Alberta and Albertans. And that's why we felt it important to release the report and engage with the public. The report shows that in an apples-to-apples comparison, considering keeping everything else equal, an APP could lower contribution rates to about 5.91%. What that means in the big picture, that means about $5 billion staying in the Alberta economy, both in people's pockets, in higher paychecks, but also in savings and deductions paid by Alberta businesses. Could absolutely be a game changer for Alberta.
All right, a couple of follow-up questions, Minister. Albertans contribute much more to CPP than they get back. I think that's pretty well known. How would an APP change that? So
I should just say, an Albertan or say a Nova Scotian or a Saskatchewan resident, they get the same out of CPP if they pay the same into it. That's standard. But what we've seen in Alberta is that because of our younger population, our higher participation in the workforce, and our higher wages, our higher pensionable earnings, Alberta has contributed a lot more than they've received to date. What that means is that those contributions have been able to accrue net investment income. And that's why the potential withdrawal in Alberta's case is so substantial. What this means is if we did set up an APP with that size of withdrawal, we could lower those contribution rates or do a combination. We think we would have definitely enough capacity that you could look at increasing benefits while decreasing the minimum contribution, some kind of blend. And that's what we hope the engagement panel is going to get back from Albertans. What do they want to see if this is possible?
All right, I'll play devil's advocate for a second if I could. Your critics obviously say these numbers are skewed. They're worried about the future of their pensions. What would you say to address that and those that are a little uncertain that they could potentially lose money in this?
Well, first off, no one should be concerned about their pension. We'll start there, and I'll get back to that at the end. But to answer the other part of your question about the formula and any other opinions that may be out there, we commissioned this report. This came to us from the Fair Deal. We hired Morneau Chappelle, a firm that specializes in actuarial work and pensions. Big footprint across Canada. It did become a LifeWorks report before we got it back, but the report looks at everything, and it looks at the formula that is in the CPP Act. So the formula, in its most basic, it basically shows Alberta's contributions in, minus benefits paid, minus Alberta's share of the operating expenses, plus the net investment income. It isn't meant to, but in the end, it really shows what Alberta's position would be if we would have started an APP back in 1966. Back to the validity of the report. So we've had multiple legal opinions that agree and defend the validity of the report, both in its interpretation, methodology. So we're confident. We're working off the best information that we have, and we're having that conversation with Albertans.
Fair. And listen, tough to argue with those numbers. Maybe we'll end with this one. This is by no means a done deal. Albertans will have their final say on what happens to their pensions. That's correct. Yes?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, in no way will we proceed without a referendum. The tagline in the communications is "Your pension, your choice." We firmly believe that. In fact, we'll be bringing legislation forward this fall. If passed, it'll be called the Alberta Pension Protection Act, most likely. But if passed, it'll basically lay out four things. We won't move ahead without a referendum. Any funds that are withdrawn will only be used to set up and operate an APP, and will only proceed if benefits can at least be equal to or greater than CPP benefits, and contribution rates will have to be equal or less than the current rates. So we're only moving ahead if not only we have the approval of Albertans, but if this is truly in Albertans' best interest.
All right, Minister Horner, thank you for the debrief. We appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Bruce.
There is Finance Minister and Treasury Board, Finance and Treasury Board Minister Nate Horner joining us on the program. And the Alberta government does want your feedback on this, as the minister alluded to. Please visit albertapensionplan.ca to find out more, and share your thoughts there by taking the survey. Well, an update now for you on the E. coli outbreak connected to several Calgary area daycares. As of September 27th, there are 351 lab-confirmed cases for children remaining in hospital due to this illness. The investigation has identified meatloaf and vegan loaf meals as likely the source of the infection, which was provided to the daycare centers by the Central Kitchen Fueling Mines. To better ensure an outbreak like this does not happen again, the Premier has tasked former Calgary Police Chief Rick Hansen to lead an independent task force to look into this.
I've asked the panel to work quickly, and while we wait for this important work to be complete, we will not hesitate to make changes if they're needed, when they're needed. Our goal is to develop a system that is stronger and safer, and one that every parent can trust. And I look forward to the panel's recommendations and the work we will accomplish together for the children and the families who've been affected by this outbreak, and for all Albertans.
Now, we should point out the City of Calgary has also laid charges against Fueling Mines for operating without a proper license. And of course, our thoughts are with the parents and those impacted by this, those kids that remain in hospital. We certainly extend our gratitude as well to all the healthcare workers and professionals that have been helped dealing with the situation. Premier Danielle Smith helping kick off the World Petroleum Congress, which was hosted here in Alberta last week. Over 5,000 executives and government officials from oil-producing nations around the world gathered in Calgary for really what is referred to as the Olympics of the global energy industry. Here's a clip of the Premier's address to delegates.
I have to say this is such a rare opportunity for us to do this at this Congress, to show everything that we're doing in Alberta, to show that we are leaders in determining how that future is going to look. You're proving our products can be produced with a steadily lower emissions, and the goal of carbon neutral production is realistic. And in doing this, you're preserving jobs and you're preserving the economy. You're ensuring that reliable, clean supplies of oil and gas are available to balance the intermittent nature of other energy sources. Alberta's oil and gas are crucial for global stability, growth, and development. And I'm excited to be working with all of you in the years ahead. You can count on me as a champion. I will always stand up for our industry. This is as much about sustaining Canadian values as it is about protecting the climate and the international economy. And Alberta is a major part of the solution to all of these challenges.
Energy Minister Brian Jean was front and center at the World Petroleum Congress. He was a very busy man. I know. I tried to pin him down for a conversation. It was difficult to do so. Minister, thanks for joining us. Good to see you as always.
My pleasure to be here today, Bruce. Thanks for the invite.
Minister, for those who weren't present at the WPC, obviously a lot of us read the headlines. What do Albertans need to know about those who gathered and the impact that it could have on us and the economy here in Alberta?
Well, first of all, they should know that the Premier stood up for our oil and gas industry and for hardworking Albertans. And she made it very clear to Ottawa and everybody else in attendance that she was behind our industries 100%. And I was very proud of that. There's no question that you have to be excited if you were at that event. Oil executives and captains of industry right from around the world were here in Alberta, in Calgary, in our oil and gas headquarters. And they saw amazing things and talked to people from right across the industry. And we're excited about what Alberta has to offer the world, especially in relation to natural gas and lithium and some of the other things that are coming out of Alberta's oil and gas industry right now.
You bet. Listen, it's no secret the Prime Minister of this country and many in his cabinet have been anything but friendly toward Alberta's energy sector and the work our province has been doing as a leader in environmental standards. To that point, what kind of reaction does Alberta get from some of the international partners, some of those looking to invest here, given that level of hostility at times from the federal government?
Well, there's no question that the federal government's going in a different direction. I mean, we're focused here on reducing emissions, and they seem to be focused on reducing jobs. The world looked at what was taking place, and I have to tell you, I believe that a lot of them were surprised. There was some very interesting reactions in the room in relation to the federal minister's speech, but there's no question they're going a different direction. But we know for certain that the energy industry, the oil and gas industry, is here for a long time. Combustion engines may be in question, and for certain we're looking at more efficiencies there and in other places. But Alberta is at the lead of the pack as far as reducing emissions and making sure we are environmental sustainable as we can be here in Alberta. Like Bruce, there's nobody that does it better than we do. Human rights, the environment, making sure that we have things protected for long-term and for generational use. Look at lithium as a play. It's coming out of our oil and gas expertise, and it's halfway produced already. It's going to be a phenomenal thing for Alberta, and I think truly is going to be a world-class inventory here of lithium that the world is right now taking a look at and taking very serious, along with many other things that we have, natural gas as well.
Yeah, so much potential. I think I mentioned earlier there were over 5,000 delegates at this conference. If you had to pin it down to one thing, Minister, what would you say your key takeaway is from the World Petroleum Congress?
That the world wants our energy. It wants to be part of it, not just buy it. They want to be here in Alberta and be part of the exciting future. I mean, if the federal government follows through with their promises in relation to CCUS and the income tax credit that they promised, well, I think we are in a very good place. And the world recognizes that CCUS, we are a world leader and we have natural competitive advantages there. The natural gas, we have so many opportunities with natural gas, especially as a feedstock for hydrogen and other great energy sources. And finally, what we can do with our lithium and so many other precious minerals right across the the province. We know where these things are located. The industry does. We have 72,000 core samples, 150,000 plus earth samples, and 1 million plus water samples. So we know where these minerals are. The world just has to come and produce it and exploit it. And Albertans get a huge piece of the pie because, of course, as you know, Bruce, these natural resources belong to the people of Alberta, and we have a duty to make sure we do what's best for them by every decision we make.
You bet. Listen, you mentioned the Premier's commitment to the industry and their defense of it. I'll just point out, you've been a stalwart representing those in the oil and gas industry on the file. So we appreciate that work, and thanks for taking your time to join us today.
Thanks, Bruce, and keep doing what you're doing.
Energy Minister Brian Jean joining us today. Now, the theme of the World Petroleum Congress this year was focused on the energy transition and the path to net zero emissions. This was a large part of what was discussed, as the minister just referred to. And while Alberta is a leader in emissions reduction, Premier Danielle Smith made it clear that Alberta is focused on phasing out emissions, not oil and gas.
My view is that we should be working towards carbon neutrality by 2050 and figuring out what those abatement curves look like for each industry. Some industries are going to get there faster than others. But when I talk to those who are looking for that transition and looking for Canada to play a role in exporting LNG, they're very clear with me that if we don't do our part and they can't get that secure supply of natural gas, they're going to recommission coal plants. And what we don't want to see is that because we're looking for a perfect solution, that we're not looking at what the transition needs to be. You've got to live in the real world, not on computer models. And he actually challenged the group to find a single time that the IEA has had a single projection that has been correct. You take a measure of prudence so that you don't end up creating disruption and instability in the markets, and then you can always increase. And so I think that that kind of approach actually is a lot more practical than trying to rely on predictions from what has become increasingly, unfortunately, a political activist organization. We know that we have to deal with emissions in an urgent basis, but we also have to make sure that we're dealing with reliability and affordability and energy security.
The Premier really hitting the nail on the head there, that energy security, a cleaner future, and affordability all go hand in hand. And we're seeing that reality really become a realization for many around the world. In California, for instance, grid instability has forced the state to slow its plans to transition away from natural gas and nuclear energy. In the UK, in the last week or so, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, in the latest Democratic leader, expressing concern over the extreme costs being placed on families from setting unrealistic timelines on emissions reduction. Here at home, the federal government continuing its demands to provinces to make electricity grid to net zero by 2035. Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas is Rebecca Schulz. She recently released a video explaining the impact this could have on your family.
Federal Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault is demanding that Alberta's electricity grid be net zero by 2035. It's an ideological plan that's unrealistic, unaffordable, and quite frankly, it's dangerous for Albertans. Our people here in Alberta would almost certainly experience blackouts during the harshest times of winter and during hot summer days, and of course at some of the busiest times for families. Think dinner, homework, kids' activities, all in the dark. It's dangerous, and it's really not optional. This federal government intrusion is an unconstitutional threat, and we will absolutely stand up for Albertans.
And joining us now to talk more about this is Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schulz. Good day, Minister.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks so much for having me.
Minister, it would appear that the world is waking up to what many see really as unrealistic timelines for this net zero targets that are being set, which are having major impact on families. You pointed it out in the video we just shared. Comment more on that if you could.
Yeah, and just building on what Minister Jean just said, I mean, we have a world-class energy industry. We are leading the way when it comes to sustainable energy development and emissions reduction. And so what we see is a federal government that continues to come in with ideology over common sense. And at this point, we have to look at, yes, emissions reduction. We here in Alberta, we have goals for carbon neutrality that are aligned with our industry partners and aligned with many others around the world. Yet the federal government is coming in with an arbitrary interim deadline of 2035. And so, going back to World Petroleum, we saw Minister Wilkinson deliver a speech where he said, I think we ought to be like Germany. And you've mentioned California, Texas, Germany, the UK. Here's what's happening. I mean, Germany is firing up coal-fired electricity. And the other thing is California, Texas, we're rationing power. So what that means for everyday Albertans and quite frankly, Canadians right across our country is that affordability and reliability are at risk. That means that at times of peak power use, say between 4 and 9, when you are getting home, you're picking up your kids, doing homework, making dinner, activities, hockey, piano, you name it, in the dark. I mean, when Albertans are going to be paying for massively increased power costs estimates are around over $1 trillion, up to $1.7 trillion. Somebody's going to have to pay for that. It comes down to taxpayers. And I think, right now what we're hearing is cost of living is a top of mind issue. We need to make sure that we're moving forward in emissions reduction, continuing to lead the way, but also prioritizing affordability and reliability.
Well, a lot of Albertans starting to see that for sure. And as we pointed out just before we introduced you, around the world we're seeing those changes. Listen, you were at the WPC, the World Petroleum Congress. You mentioned that. Alberta has a lot to be proud of, doesn't it, for its clean energy emissions reductions and its other work. What did, in your opinion, your perspective, what did the other countries seem to think of the work we're doing here in Alberta?
It was really exciting. I think, first of all, I was proud that we were hosting this here in Alberta at a time like right now, when we're talking about meeting the world's energy security needs and also emissions reduction. And really, truly, Alberta is leading the way on these fronts. When we look at CCUS, for example, I mean, we've been a leader for a very long time, and we are seeing, others look at what is being done here and taking notice when it comes to methane emissions reduction. I mean, we were the first jurisdiction to put requirements on emissions starting in the early 1990s. We were the first province in Canada to set a methane emissions target for the oil and gas sector, and we are well on track to surpass our goals. We've seen a 44% reduction as of 2021 since 2014. That's huge. When we look at electricity, emissions have declined 53% since about 2005. I mean, we are absolutely leading the way. And I think the world was interested in not only seeing what Alberta is doing, how we are doing it. And honestly, our approach has really been to collaborate with industry. And I think that's why we've been seeing such great results.
Listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this, and you've touched on it. So how much time you spend on the answer, I leave entirely to you. But the Prime Minister was at it again in recent days, making an announcement in New York about methane reduction and some restrictions being placed. You just point out that Alberta is already leading the way in this area. Was there any consideration to the fact that were you consulted in any way before this announcement was made by the federal government? And what do you make of it?
No, you know what, we weren't. And we were very clear with the federal government. I was certainly clear with Minister Guilbeault, but when myself and Premier Smith and Minister Jean met with some of the other federal ministers, we were very clear that we weren't going to accept any unilateral targets, and that includes methane, outside of the discussions that we're having with the federal government. The reason for that, again, is, the federal government, whether it be methane emissions reduction targets or this proposed oil and gas cap, which we are expecting to see something on in the next couple of months based on comments in the media, these have impacts on the development and production of our energy. That, first of all, is an area of provincial jurisdiction. These resources, as Minister Jean said, they belong to the people of Alberta, and this is sole provincial jurisdiction. So first of all, there's that. Second of all, it's that we are leading the way when it comes to methane emissions reduction. I mean, we talk about World Petroleum Congress being here. Just a couple weeks before that, I was at the Methane Mitigation Conference, again, meeting with people from around the world, talking about how we've been able to surpass our goals for 2025. And again, the approach we take is not punitive. That's what we see from the federal government. It's all about ideology and punitive measures. We instead take the approach of working with industry, making sure that the technology exists to set reasonable targets and provide flexibility through our regulatory system, as well as supports on how we get there. We are going to be consulting with industry on what our next target is going to be. And that's why we've said to the federal government, look, we're not taking your unilateral targets. We will consult with industry. We will come up with something that doesn't risk our Alberta economy, entire communities, jobs, and really energy security and reliability for everyday Albertans. And, we have to continue to stand up for our energy industry. I mean, as the Minister of Environment, I can tell you, I am proud of our industry and the work that they're doing on emissions reduction and stewardship of our environment. And in fact, I'm grateful for that leadership position that they've helped put us in. So we're going to continue to stand up for Albertans, for our industry. We're going to continue to reduce emissions and lead the way worldwide when it comes to environmental stewardship, but also sustainable energy development, because we want to see our industry continue to produce and be sustainable and be a world leader for generations to come.
Listen, your passion and commitment for Albertans on this is very clear. Thank you for talking to us about it today. Appreciate it, Minister. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Bruce.
Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schulz, joining us. Well, Alberta's economy has momentum. There's no question about that. More skilled laborers are needed to support our workforce, especially in the construction industry. In order to meet growing demand and for highly skilled tradespeople, Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sawhney announcing the province will support more new apprenticeship opportunities for Albertans.
Alberta's government wants to ensure that we can support this momentum so that those who want to learn can learn starting now. So I'm happy to announce today that Alberta's government is investing an additional $12.4 million to create nearly 2,000 new apprenticeship seats.
Minister Sawhney adding that by expanding apprenticeship opportunities, Alberta's government will empower students to pursue rewarding careers while sustaining the growth and momentum of our economy. The Premier and several other ministers were in Red Deer as well recently, looking into some other news to help announce the naming of the Central Alberta Child Advocacy Centre and the Youth Mental Health and Addiction Hub. Here are some highlights from that announcement.
Today's an important day and a major milestone in a journey that saw the centre go from just a proposal to planning to completion. The centre is a godsend for struggling families in Central Alberta, and I'm so proud that our government is a part of this project. Strong, healthy communities are a priority for Alberta's government, and strong, healthy children are at the heart of our communities. Child abuse has no place in our province, and it's a heartbreaking reality that it occurs, and it leaves scars, some that you can't see, on its young victims. Undoubtedly, this was an excellent investment. This one-of-a-kind facility sets the bar for how we can all work together to best support children and youth who need help. And it's changing the way professionals in the child abuse and mental health field treat those who need help. It places Red Deer and Alberta on the international stage as leaders and innovators in these fields. And most importantly, it helps kids who need help.
Alberta's government is providing $1.7 million to expand low-income transit programs in 6 new communities across the province. As Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, Jason Nixon explains, this is just another step in the government's efforts to make life more affordable for Albertans.
Low-income transit passes are just one way that we are helping individuals and families on a tight budget. We have paused the 13% per litre provincial fuel tax through the end of the year. And through our inquiry into renewables, we are seeking long-term solutions to be able to lower Albertans' electricity bills. In my Department of Community and Social Services, we are supporting nearly 12,500 households through our rent supplement programs, and work is underway through a $9 billion investment with our partners to build 25,000 new affordable homes across our province by 2031. The affordability crisis is top of mind for our government and all Albertans, and it will continue to be. We know there is more to be done, and we will continue to work to help Albertans with the rising cost of living. Albertans can trust that the Alberta government has their back and will continue to do whatever we can to make life more affordable.
With this additional funding, low-income Albertans in Camrose, Hinton, Leduc, Lethbridge, Red Deer, and Spruce Grove will now be able to apply for a low-income transit pass. And we want to, before we leave you today, end the show on a bit of a lighter note. Hockey is back. Yes, it's that time of year again, and the Battle of Alberta won't be long to follow. Here's a little preview now. Premier Danielle Smith joining hockey legends Mark Messier and Lanny McDonald to tee up the upcoming season and the AJHL season. Support a fundraiser earlier this week.
Please welcome our friend, the excellent and honorable Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta.
I'm so delighted to be here this evening, and what an amazing event that Sandy's put together. I should say that when I was a young kid, we grew up as an Oilers family, even though I was in Calgary, and I remember very clearly my brother crying on that day in August in 1988 when Gretzky was traded. And it gave me freedom, at least in my family, to start rooting for the Flames, and we won the Cup the next year. I have to say, Lanny, you've been one of my favorite players ever since. It's like hairlines and mustaches change, but the battle endures, and that rivalry is still alive and well, and so is the energy and spirit and sheer determination of every player who makes a team in the AJHL. For 60 years, the league has been there to sustain the dreams of those select few who continue from minor hockey, giving them the ice and the encouragement to keep driving the net.
The Premier was pressed. Would she support the Oilers? Would she support the Flames? Very coy in her answer. I think it was that she's able to cheer for both teams. I can tell you that there's a big division in this office over it, though, however. So we'll just wish both teams well. And that does it for this week's Alberta Update. A look at what's happening in your province. Thank you for being with us this week. We plan to do these updates again every week when the legislature is sitting, every other week when it is not. You can always view the update on your Alberta YouTube page or the Premier's at AB Danielle Smith, and make sure to subscribe till the Alberta Update on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com. Open the app and search Your Alberta, or again, AB Danielle Smith, then hit the subscribe button. And that's it again for us this week. Thank you for sharing some time with us, and we'll see you again next time. Good day.